New York State first public policy meeting in several years. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Carol Griffith, and I am president of AUW New York State. Again, welcome. I would like to share just a few words with you about AUW's public policy. The public policy priorities underscore AAUW's mission to advance gender equity for women and girls throughout research, education, and advocacy. The work of AAUW builds upon reasonable, responsible, and public participation. And the following priorities provide a base for AAUW members' action at local, state, national, and international level. Implicit in each is support for government agencies administering programs, including adequate appropriateness, effectiveness, and accountable administration, and provides for citizens' participation. We advocate public discussion to ensure enlightened decisions on these priorities. We have worked to increase the number of women and the diversity of backgrounds they represent, including race, ethnicity, age, income, gender, and sexuality. Our positions are shaped by our commitment to being nonpartisan, fact-based, and so actively acting with integrity. We strive our work to be inclusive and intersectional, collaborating with diverse allies and coalitions to achieve equity for all. I encourage all of you tonight to take a look at our AAUW national website as you look at our section to weigh in to our public policy priorities. I also encourage you to take a look at our 2-minute activist program, which we are so proud of and has worked so effectively. Again, at this time, I was so proud to introduce Sandy Camillo, our Vice President of Public Policy for New York State. Sandy.
Well, Carol, thank you. I was going to say who I was in case people didn't know me, but thank you for telling everybody. We have a very robust public policy platform. This year, the biggest thing on it is the ERA amendment. Now, most of you will see this little yellow flower, the rose that I'm wearing, and may think to yourself, this woman doesn't realize spring is not here yet. Why is she wearing a yellow rose? You'll look around, and I can't see all your faces, but some other people have the yellow roses. The reason for that is it's honoring the suffragists, those women who fought so hard to give women the right to vote many, many years ago. When we wear these yellow roses, we honor them, and we also show the world that we will protect other rights for women. And the way we're going to do that is through the ERA amendment. Now, a lot of people have said to me, why do you need the ERA amendment? Okay, we have laws, okay, in existence right now in New York State. We do have a lot of laws. The only problem with the laws that we have is that you can repeal a law quite easily. The only thing you need to do is it would go through the legislature, and then the governor, with the stroke of a pen, would veto that law. No more law, no more protections. The Constitution of New York State is much more difficult to change. And to change it, you need the vote of the people. To repeal a law, you don't need the vote of the people. Our voices are not being heard at all. So the state constitution, again, people look at that and say, well, we're protected, right? Only for discrimination against race or religion. If you want to be really protected, the ERA amendment will protect us by saying there's no discrimination allowed because of race, color, national origin, age, disability, creed, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy, pregnancy outcomes, and the autonomy of reproductive health care. That will really protect us with our rights. So what are we going to do the rest of this night? we have two experts in this area that are going to speak to you now, two spokespersons. The first one is going to be Erica Smitker, who's right over there to the other side of me. And she is the deputy of New York State's League of Women Voters. You all know the League of Women Voters was probably one of the organizations when they were founded that was responsible for making sure women got the right to vote. And now they're going to fight to see that our other rights are protected. Then we have Nia, I see her right down there on the screen, Alvarez Mapp, and she's the organizing director of New Yorkers for Equal Rights. This is a magnificent coalition of civil and reproductive rights organizations that are advocating for this ERA amendment. Now, having said all that, I'm going to throw it right over to Erica. Erica, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandy, and thank you so much to AAUW for having us here this evening. I just want to go over a few housekeeping items first. We are on a webinar. I wanted to leave it open so that folks could ask questions verbally at the end of the evening, but that means that while we're going through the presentation, please make sure that you're muted. If you do have any questions, you can plug them into the chat and we will answer them after the presentation, or you are welcome to ask your questions verbally a little bit later. This November, we as New Yorkers will have the opportunity to really affect lasting change in our state. We'll have the chance to vote on one of the most expansive equal rights amendments in the country, which would include expansive protection from discrimination in our Constitution for all New Yorkers. One of the most important things that you all can do is head to the polls on November 5th. But the second most important thing you can do is to educate yourself on this amendment and to share what you've learned with those in your circle. You've already taken the first step by joining us here this evening. And we are really lucky to have with us tonight Nia Alvarez Mapp from the New York Equal Rights Coalition. Nia currently serves as the New Yorkers for Equal Rights organizing director. She previously worked with Common Cause as their Rank the Vote organizer, developing strategies, educating candidates and community-based organizations on ranked choice voting. Nia's primary research focus lies in political theology and its impact on voting influenced by religious contexts, as evidenced in her master's thesis paper, Campaigns, the Ethical Boundaries of Evangelization from Sacred to Secular, from Union Theological Seminary. Nia champions causes encompassing voting rights, labor equality, and education. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Nia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you so much, Sandy. And thank you so much, Carol. And just, a really great, I just want to express my gratitude for you all in both the League of Women Voters as well as AAUW to allow me to come and talk to you guys about the Equal Rights Amendment for New York State. Now, a few housekeeping rules for me, because I want to recognize there's so much presence in this room. If you feel like I'm speaking a little bit too quickly, or if you feel like I'm not speaking quick enough, and Erica's going to moderate the chat for me. Just write in the chat to say like slow down, or would you mind repeating that? I think that would really be suffice. So just so we all have a clear understanding, clarifications. And again, Erica's also going to look at questions for me to answer in the end. Now, with that further ado, I am going to share my screen if you all don't mind. Can everyone see it? And now I'm going to put it in presentation mode for everyone to see. Well, thank you all so much for having me and having my campaign, the New Yorkers for Equal Rights. My name is Nia Alvarez Mapp. I go by the pronouns of she, her, ella. I'm the organizing director, which essentially means working with such wonderful groups of people such as yourself and others all across New York State to really mobilize and get people aware and engaged to be able to vote on the ballot this year, to float the ballot this year and vote yes for the ERA. Is a little bit as much interactive as possible. So I see some people in the chat a little bit about who they are, but I want to know, as you guys are going to know about me, I want to know a little bit more about you. So if you wouldn't mind putting your name, pronoun, what org you represent, what region are you from, and when you think about the ERA, what do you think of? So it's another way of saying, what do you think of when you hear the ERA? But when you think about the ERA, what do you think of? So I'll repeat again. If you wouldn't mind putting in the chat your name, your pronoun, the organization you're coming with, what region are you from, and when you think about the ERA, what do you think of? As that is being congregated in a little bit, Okay, as that's being talked about, I know there's a lot of curiosity about what is New Yorkers for Equal Rights. Well, it's very simple. We are an organization of civil rights and reproductive rights organized groups that came together 2 years ago, who feel like ever since particular bills that have been passed by the Supreme Court that has happened, folks have not felt particularly safe. The idea is that with past elections, there's been such a, let's say, a complicity within New York State laws and policies, and there's just a form of protections that need to be done. Well, yes. So working with such amazing organizations as such as yourself.
Hit mute.
Yes, just also again reminding everyone, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself again. I understand if you have capacity and space. So we came together because we recognize that currently in New York state constitution, we only have explicit protections for those with race and religion. And with such rollbacks of certain policies that are statutory, which means essentially policies that can be easily overturned, we wanted to have stronger protections within the New York State Constitution, which is the highest legal framework within New York State. And especially considering that most Supreme Court cases have been gone through by state rights. So we wanted to ensure that our state rights are further protected. So adding explicit protections for a person's ethnicity, national origins, age, disability, including their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy outcome, and reproductive health care and autonomy. So in a little bit more layman's terms, protecting people who have been discriminated against because of their national origin, so where they come from, their ethnicity, where the particular part of the country they're in, their age, disability, LGBTQ in general, and then when it comes to pregnancy and pregnancy outcome, not only just in regards to such things as abortions, but criminalization of miscarriages, criminalization of, like as we saw with Alabama with the frozen embryos, is making sure we add those explicit protections here in New York so that no woman or person in general who is trying to have a family gets penalized for the non quote unquote natural way of pregnancy. And it's overall healthcare autonomy. And the reason why we worked so hard for this, and the reason why we did this, they worked on it for 2 years, is to make sure that it is strengthened our fortified documents within New York State against any persuasive person that would like to take away our rights and our freedoms. So in summary, in TDRL, for 2 years, we went to the US state capitol, lobbied for this to become a part of a ballot measure. Another way of saying ballot measure is a referendum. So we worked for 2 years to make this into a referendum for you all to see it when you flip the ballot this year, to vote either yes or no for the ERA, which we all hope you're going to say yes to. And then sort of like what Sandy said in regards to, isn't this already a part of our laws and legal systems? Yes, it's a part of our legal systems, but it's not a part of the constitutional frame. Laws, people come and go, right? Sometimes it seems like with New York, we're always very close to losing some of the rights that we know. So we wanted to make sure we have an extra protective framework for the future so that we never really have to fear if someone else comes in that these laws will be held against us or will be overturned within the statutory and not in constitutional rights. Which is why we have worked we are making aims to raise close to $20 million to really make sure we spread the word out for everyone in New York. And that's why we have this ballot issue committee, which we now know is New Yorkers for Equal Rights, where our main groups of folks that we tend to work with is people like Planned Parenthood, NYCLU, which is also ACLU for the New York State version, so New York Civil Liberty Union, 1199, New York State's United Teachers, so the Teachers Union, Make the Road, and many, many others, including just New York Immigration Coalition, and also our really favorite people right now who are part of our field and organizing is the League of Women Voters. So again, special shout out to you guys as well. And really recognizing that New York is a battleground state. Some people really take it, we shouldn't take for granted that New York has more relatively liberal or progressive values, and that we're always in the tipping scale of complicity to make sure that our values might be taken away, that what New York is well known for. So in more summary, we are putting reproductive health and all forms of reproductive health. When we think about reproductive health, we tend to always think about it in regards to abortions. It's so much more than that. It's about being bodily autonomy and having the rights to choose what you want to do with your body. And we're putting it in under the orders of, in a more broader framework for rights and freedoms. Expanding constitutional protections against those who have been faced by discrimination based off where they came from, and as well as based off of the thoughts of ethnicity and national origins. And again, squarely making sure that all New Yorkers do not feel like they're being discriminated. I mean, when you guys, and I'll stop right here for a quick second. Is there anything when you look in this particular framework of age, disability, national origins, do you feel or feel seen that there's other people in your life or yourself have felt discriminated against based off these following items? When you look at the news, when you look at your neighbors, when you look at your friends or people you hear from, do you feel like there's some forms of discrimination that you wish you could do more for? Well, this is the opportunity where we can do something about it. And again, it's not just you guys if you feel this way as well. Other New Yorkers feel this way. Most New Yorkers feel like discrimination, even in New York State, is a very serious problem. Even in not only in just the country, but even in our own state where everyone feels like it's supposed to be seen as a safe space, where they believe protecting equal rights, adding in even further protections should be a high priority for New York leaders. Seeing that discrimination is a real credible threat for those with not just abortion rights, but access to birth control, voting rights, marriage rights, and protection against workplace discrimination. Most New Yorkers feel like reproductive health is a major concern in these developments, with 70% of New Yorkers say it's important that we have amendments to protect abortion rights and access of other general reproductive health care. And also making sure that people do not get penalized based off of miscarriages, as we've seen in past other states as well. Adding expansive protections for those who felt like they've been racially discriminated, where 75% of New Yorkers feel like racial discrimination is a serious problem in New York. And now also on top of that, 71% of New Yorkers feel like immigrations are being discriminated against in New York City today, with 84 feel like there should be more explicit protections against all cultures and ethnicities that come to New York. Same with regards to LGBTQ, saying there's the extreme discrimination happening here as well. And that 70% of New Yorkers react positively, knowing that there will be an amendment that could possibly protect LGBTQ New Yorkers even further. Same when it comes to against workplace discrimination. Same when it comes to making sure that people are trusted in their bodies and feeling like they have full bodily autonomy to who they want to be and who they can be. Same with regards to age and disabilities, that 72% of New Yorkers feel like their rights and freedoms are being at risk based off of their disabilities that they have. Same in regards to the more older people in New York as well, where 86 feel positive to know that there might be an amendment to protect those not only with disabilities, but also for those who are facing discrimination based off their age. So what does that all mean? We're going to win this. I believe we're going to win. I hope you all believe we're going to win. And we have to work harder more than ever to see how we're going to win this. And really the choice is in our hands. Each and every one of you has a role into ensuring that this bill gets into the New York State Constitution, not only simply by going on November 5th to flip the ballot and saying yes, but talking to people that you know to ensure that they can do the same thing as well. Because our aim overall is that we are a grassroots coalition-led organization campaign, not by any party lines, but by regular people just like you and me who are trying to make New York better than ever. Because our goal is always to leave the state better than we found it, build ally partnerships to scale that Repo has done before, making sure everyone feels inclusive, creating meaningful change through direct democracy, and setting a national framework, not only just for abortions, but for all discriminations that were named. And just for general rights and justice, because this is a bill that's first in its kind. And if this bill gets passed, well, no, not even if, when this bill gets passed, this can set a higher tone, not just for other states, but also bring in the conversation in the national federal ERA that's currently being processed. So in a more nerdier political side of this, we recognize that by the target scales that 8.5 million New Yorkers voted in November 2020. With the assumption that there's going to be new New Yorkers, shout out to Gen Z, as well as new New Yorkers moving in, there is going to be a relatively higher turnout for this year's election for the presidential race. We suspect the highest number to be 9.2 million. We suspect as well in this New York that even though we are trying to run a statewide campaign, we also have to make sure that all people are being recognized and feeling felt like they're being heard across the state. We also have to be paying attention and concentrating on certain areas, unfortunately, concentrating on certain areas, in particular the downstate folks, because they had the high voters percentage, but also not leaving out the other areas such as the Capital, Central, Finger Lake, Mohawk Valley, North Country, Southern Tier, and Western New York, because without them, we will not be able to win this victory.
Nia, we have one request for you to slow down just a bit.
Perfect. Oh yeah, sure. I'll repeat what I just said, like last slide. So we suspect that 9.2 million people might turn out. That is our highest maximum that we predict, that 9.2. In the ideal world, the highest number will be 9.2 million people that will come to this year's election. That number is made up by the voter percentages. So we suspect that the people that are in our favor is based on this particular percentage. So highest concentration will be downstate, but we also want to make sure and highlight all the other areas that are not in the downstate regions that we need just as much as we need in the downstate areas to be able to make this victory happen. Recognizing that 1/3 of our winning coalition are voters of color, seeing what 30% makes up of both Black, Latin, and AAPI folks, and recognizing that this is not a political issue, it's a human rights issue, where across all partisan lines, we are in the 20% of how much they want to support this particular bill. So what does that mean? Looking into voter turnouts, all across New York, no matter where you come from, who you are, or who you present yourself to be, people will like to support this bill, but a part of it is just motivating people to come vote based off of the particular maps and regions in which we're concentrating on. Again, not to discount these areas. So as you see, blue is areas that we want to make sure motivating people to get out the vote. Yellow is the ones that we have to persuade a little bit more. And red is to not neglect, but to make sure we mitigate polarization that's happening in those areas that's being spread by misinformation by opposition or possible opposition. And this is the particular turnout that we predict that's going to happen in the highest estimate for this year's election as well. So again, this meaning we're not discounting any part of New York, and we're making sure everyone gets out to vote for this bill. And to sort of in a more narrow down understanding of this, base territories are important because it's not that they don't support us, it's that we have to remind people to get out the vote. There has been a lot of complacency in particular based areas because of drop off, and we have to remind people to flip the ballot. Understanding that we have to run up those scores downstate because 30% of New Yorkers, if they do not understand a ballot, they will not go and turn the ballot over and flip for it. As seen with less within the Constitutional Convention of 2017, where it was supported by Labor to not vote yes for it, and there was a drop off, and there was less of a drop off, but it was more likely to vote so no. And again, this is what tends to be more Democratic voters. Same when it comes to drastic measurements of voter turnout overall in New York State electorate. As we see, drop-off has been drastically in the more particular downstate areas, while they've been running up in areas in the more suburban parts of New York, as well as the capital regions and upstate cities. So basically, like I said again earlier, we have to make sure upstate is as motivated as we're doing. We have to make sure our upstate campaigning is as motivating and also as optimistic as possible for our downstate, because those numbers will turn out and turn up, and making sure that we are that will basically make or break all of us to make sure we get this campaign win. Swing territories in particular are going to be a little bit great because of voter turnout, because those are the areas that we know for navigating battles, so battleground areas, and especially in congressional districts. So they might have to be a little bit more persuaded. It's always based off making sure who has the information and who has the narrative first. And also recognizing that there has been such unmotivation that we have to really hone in on that motivation front to make sure there's no polarization going on in particular areas, so that we can have a full comprehensive campaign. So what does that particularly mean? Reproducing statewide numbers from 2020 and 2022, mitigating negative region regional area, excuse me, and demographic trends. So making sure that our young people and voters of color show up, running up the scores in our more based areas just to get them to go out to vote, and then help persuade areas in Hudson Valley, Long Island. One thing I really will be remiss to say, and again, motivating areas in that are not mentioned here to come out and vote and mitigate those more negative regions. So what does that mean and what is next? Well, we're currently in a we're having a March launch on the 21st, where I know some of the people at the League of Women Voters have been working endlessly with us to ensure we do teach-ins in all areas in New York State to create that voter education, and also making sure that people feel comfortable and accumulated in understanding what the ERA is, to make sure people are getting ready to get out the ballot so that we can eventually get ready to do our GOTV in like mid-July and all the way to November. So how does that help? So what does it have to do with you or your organization and how you imagine yourself in the work? Very simple. Invite us to as many chapters, any membership meetings, create relational organizing as much as possible. We want to make sure everyone gets out the word. Help engage us with additional organizations, even if you feel like they have nothing to do with the ERA, still help them come and talk with us and let them tell us that. Let us be engaged as possible with everyone that we know. Because again, without League of Women Voters, we wouldn't have been talking to you guys at AAUW. So again, helping that engagement to be there and present in all walks and corners of your life. Affirming your organization's support for New York City Rights through our digital toolkits that we're also going to be proud and happy. We're going to start giving out more soon. And again, we have monthly grass top leadership meetings that if you want to know more about the campaign's progress and how the campaign's doing, you can join us monthly. So again, if you want to know more about the campaign, I'm going to put this all in the chat. You can get involved, affirm your organization's support by, using your social media or contacting me to see how there's other ways we can engage. And if you want to know about campaign overview and progress, come join our next Grass Top Leadership call. And again, I know, just want to plug this in again, League of Women Voters have been doing a lot of they're going to do some teach-ins around the week of March 21st before and after. So make sure you get engaged with people like Erica to see what to do around that time to really know more of what's going on.
Thank you so much, Nia. I really appreciate it. That was awesome. We have a lot of really great questions in the chat, some of which I just wanted to make sure that were spoken out loud so that everybody has the answer. The first being that we're absolutely recording this, and I'll get the recording out to you all. More than welcome to share it with folks in your community, folks in your network, and we'll also get a version of the PowerPoint out to you all. So I see that some people are interested in sharing it at their church, which is fantastic. The first question that we have is, Nia, you talked a little bit about this, but can you define pregnancy outcome and how that is defined within this amendment?
Yeah, no, totally. So when we think about pregnancy outcome, we think of, well, I'll just start like this. Under New York State Constitution, they do not see pregnant people as humans and viable under constitutional law. So when you think about things as criminalization of miscarriages, when you think about words of Black maternal health, when you think about things such as having IVS or infertility, or the thoughts of sterilization, that's not fully protected under New York State's Constitution. So that's when, in regards to pregnancy outcomes, that's when we sort of talk about in that broader frame.
Thanks, Nia. Our next question, you all have some really great questions. I'm trying to keep up with people in the chat.
Erica, going back to that particular question, okay, there's actually a legal definition to pregnancy outcomes. And what we interpreted to mean is always like, are we having the baby or not? But it actually is the sum of live births, induced abortions, and fetal loss from stillbirths and hospitalized cases of miscarriages. So it's a pretty broad legal terminology there too. I just want to make sure people understand that there's a lot involved in a pregnancy outcome.
Thanks, Sandy. The legal interpretation.
I tend to go legal all the time. Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah. No,
that's my background.
Right? Yeah, no, that's good.
I just have a comment. Nia, you said that pregnant women are considered. I understand they're not protected, but they're not considered. I was concerned about you're saying that they're not considered as people, that
under the constitutional framework, right? There's no constitutional protections for pregnant people in New York State. So under like a more legal frame, as I understood from NYCLU, and I'm also happy to connect folks to our NYCLU lawyers as well, there's no full constitutional legal protections, which essentially under some guides can make it seem like that pregnant people are not considered people to protect under the Constitution.
Yes, because in the Constitution right now, it just states for race and religion. That's it.
Thank you.
All right, so let's see, our next question is, let's see, Nia, what are some other hands-on things that folks can do to promote the ERA or the New York ERA?
Yes, no. So actually, I'm really excited to again promote this March 21st. If I'm going to also put this in the chat, March 21st, we are going to be gearing off with more hands-on things that people can do in regards to how to get more involved with the ERA. So we're really starting our phases with one, relational organizing, to now eventually go into like community organizing, which is like more than just talking to the people that you know, but talking to your community as a whole, and to really power map with folks around your neighborhood and areas to really convince them in a more persuasive tone. And then eventually getting into more direct voter contact, which is the things such as we know as postcarding, door knocking, and phone banking. So if you want to really start getting into those teachings and trainings, I would actually invite you guys to talk to Erica. I'm sorry to uplift Erica a little bit about this, but
Happy
she
to.
and the legal lawyers are been killing it with, they're going to be hosting a lot of teachings across New York State to really get involved in your particular area, to really learn how to get into that engagement.
Thanks, Nia. I just plugged my email in the chat for anybody who would like to reach out. There are a couple of repeat questions that that I know we can answer. One of which is about, do we know the ballot language yet? And the answer to that is no, not yet. That's something that, as all the leaguers out there know, is decided by the New York State Board of Elections ultimately, but it's something that the campaign and NIA have been working very closely with, given the law that was passed last year, the plain language bill, to ensure that the measure that will be on the ballot is clear and understandable and at an 8th grade reading level, so that folks all across New York State can understand it. So,
And oh, yes, sorry.
yeah,
And
no,
then
go ahead, Nia.
and also to uplift that, when the decision, the sort of final vote for that is not going to come until August 5th. So there's a little bit of time for the official language to come to be heard about it.
Yes, exactly. And there will be a public comment period too, so that folks can chime in on the language that will be on the ballot. Let's see, our next question goes back, well, actually, Nia, could you talk a little bit more about the inclusivity of this amendment? And is it really, how groundbreaking is it?
Well, I'm so glad you asked about that because, you know, when we think about the ERA, it's primarily focused just on women. Historically, the ERA hasn't particularly been inclusive for a lot of folks. And also when we think about current abortion bills that have been saying yes or no to, it's mainly just to prevent banning of abortions. What we're doing here is to make sure that things such as abortions are protected under legal frame of the New York State Constitution, but also adding discrimination. So like all the like as Sandy has pointed out, the only discriminations that are protected, only forms of the protections against discriminations in New York State is just race and religion. So more in broader frames to get localized it, Latinos or those who are under the forms of AAPI are by ethnicities are not protected against discrimination. Those with age, those who have age discrimination, that's not protected under New York State's Constitution. Same thing with disabilities, same thing with gender, and same things with just LGBTQ as a whole, right? None of that is under a legal constitutional protection. So this is a very first in its kind ballot measure that's really starting to open up a conversation of what protections should be included in under Constitution. And when this bill gets passed, this can also lead to other states that are following the same in regards all across the United States, and hopefully, and in turn, can get into a more national conversation as well within our federal Congress.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking that New York State is, I believe 29 other states already have at least sex protected in their constitution. So it's pretty shocking that New York State isn't already there. And it's pretty exciting that we could really lead the way with this really inclusive amendment. So, all right. So our next question is, Okay, so this goes back to the chart that you were showing, the total voters. And maybe this might be a better question to answer offline, but is the percentage that you were showing there the percentage of total voters, or is it the percentage of likely supporters of the ERA in each region? I don't know if
Uh,
some remember that.
that is the percentage of likely supporters.
Great.
And again, this is, and please do not take what was shown as, it's just a guesstimate where it's like just like when people say, who do you think is going to win in this year's election? No one knows. It's always going to turn, no one's really going to know the overall voting percentages. We all can make guesses because there's no actual number or answer until November 6th. To put it lightly. So, it's we're always guessing, but the beautiful part of this campaign is that we're trying to prepare for anything to happen.
Nia, I have probably your favorite question in the chat, which is when will folks be getting materials that they can use to pass out to people and push those education efforts?
I am so glad you asked that. I'm finally happy to say we just finished finalizing our communication vendors. So they're starting tomorrow. You guys can get so much material so quickly before the 21st, guys. Your head's gonna spin. I'm gonna legit, like, you know how those sports games where they do the t-shirt cannons.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do t-shirt cannons for lawn signs for you guys. Trust me. You're gonna get so many materials that I hope you guys are happy with.
Great, thanks, Nia. I know you get that question all the time, and
It's my favorite one. I know, and trust me, I think about it all the time too. So I'm very happy to answer that question. And again, push for everyone to make sure we all get the materials that we need to make sure everyone understands that this is a very serious campaign that we're doing here.
yeah,
Nia, would that
absolutely.
be on your site that I would go on your site to order that for my branches? Is that how I would do it?
Yes, we're still sort of working out the kinks, but that's what the ideal aim is going to be.
Thank you.
Nia, the next few questions we have are we got a lot of questions about opposition, and so generally it's who do we expect to be organizing against this? What kind of misinformation do we expect the opposition might say, and how do we combat that? And then more specifically, is there any indication of folks in the business sector opposing this amendment?
Well, current opposition that was filed against this was called Coalition to Protect Kids. It is an anti-trans group, a very much Mom for Liberty type, if you will. We suspect there might be more opposition going our way. But, truth be told with you guys, a lot of it is more to do with just the work is intersectional. There's going to be times where people are going to ask you, like, why is this bill so intersectional? And that's really because our opposition is going to be intersectional. So why not include it? And the most important thing is because there's just protections of freedoms that need to get done. We take a lot of things for granted, and we need to make sure that those protections are here. And we have to make sure that we have to end the New York State form of complicity to make sure that these protections are not just here for us, but for the future. And because we suspect there's going to be, everything about this particular bill, I can find someone who's going to be anti it, but that doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, we have to stand together and stand together and show the solidarity with each other, say that we are New Yorkers, no matter who we are or what we are, and we're here for each other. We are here to protect our rights and freedoms because that's what New York does.
Thank you. Oops, sorry, lost the question. Here we go. Will undocumented individuals or those waiting for asylum hearings be protected under the ERA?
That is a great question. That is something that we are still trying to figure that out as well. As a current right now, we are just really focusing on the forms of immigrants who are going through discrimination as a whole, who have been here because of national origins or ethnicity as a whole. So that could easily add into the framework, but to be honest with you, we're still trying to figure out that question at this moment as well.
And there is a whole kind of a separate team that's working on not only the implications for individuals who are undocumented, but also with the implications of the amendment as a whole, correct?
Yes, we have every nook and cranny of this amendment has been checked by our legal team I think is that excuse my French. It's been their 3rd year anniversary within the legal team by itself, really trying to understand what the framework is going to be in New York. And we are going to, trust me, when we get the full frame of the legal, because we don't want to give out piece by piece. We want to show you guys the full scale, the whole cheeseburger, right? Of the legal impact of what this amendment is going to be. So when we have that ready, you guys are going to be the first to be given to.
Thanks, Nia. Got a lot of groups. I hope everybody is reading the chat. I'm trying to keep up with you all. There's a lot of folks who are
I'm
interested.
also going to just post my email in the
Oh,
chat
perfect.
again
Okay,
for
great.
folks who haven't really needed to get an automatic click on it. I'm sorry if I'm not looking at the chat. I just really want to focus on the questions at hand.
Yeah, no, that's great. We have a lot of folks who are interested in collaborating with other groups. So, you know, Nia and I will take a look at the chat after this and make sure that you all are, you know, are reached out to in some way, or you can reach out to Nia or myself. Our emails are in the chat. The one more question about handouts, Nia, will the handout materials be target specific by things like geography and for important target audiences like those who are disabled, students, etc.?
Well, again, because we are a statewide campaign, we recognize not everything that is in Buffalo is going to gem well in Brooklyn. The same thing, how some things that are translated great in Suffolk will not really resonate with folks in Syracuse. So with our comms team, with our research and polling, and with our legal team, we will be having assets and collateral materials that will help accommodate within particular parts of this amendment. So that is the aim and goal. So yes.
Would the ERA, our next question is, would the ERA address income discrimination, such as rights for those who are unhoused?
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Sure.
Just also wanted to plug in registration form. I just also want to plug in on my chat if folks who want to do some type of teach-ins for these March launches. I also put that under my email as well. In regards to income discriminations and unhoused and homeless, unfortunately, this is not that particular constitution at this moment. If there is, but right, there's always some form of connection to this, right? When it comes to when we think of things such as poverty, when it comes to things of like not being able to go into homeless shelters. If homeless shelters discriminate someone based off of the following things, that can be something that's used against them. So we could put it in that sort of broader framework, and that's something that we could still also talk about within the legal implications and impacts once this bill gets passed.
Are there any, I think we've got some answers in the chat about this question is about are there interfaith coalitions for the ERA amendment that folks could partner with? And I believe there's an interfaith organization that's on the steering committee. Is that correct? Or am I?
Well, we work with a lot of, well, that's something we're actually trying to formulate. Okay, so like full transparency, I went to Columbia Uni Theological Seminary, so I'm very much all for Faith for ERA. We're actually going to do a faith working group called Faith for ERA to really make sure that faith have their own. Because, you know, when we think about how often faith is being misused for like the more negative components, negative connotations for laws and policies, we really discount all the faith groups that are really there for rights and justice. So we wanted to create a coalition of that and a coalition table for faith folks to get together and use the language of their sacred spaces and theologies to really have people to have an understanding of the ERA in their own right. So yes, we are also looking to find something such as the New York State Council of Churches to be a part of our steering committee. But we also want to make sure that there's a working group for all various different religious organizations, institutions, and forums of their own right to come together to just make sure that they have something to talk about for themselves and their congregants.
That's great. Yeah, I'm actually going to have you jump back to talk a little bit more about the March 21st launch. Can you talk a little bit about the structure of that? Are there, you know, how many events do we expect or hope to have statewide? And, you know, what's the best way for folks to get involved? Should they be looking for an event near them? Should they reach out to host their own event? Just tell us a little bit more about that launch date.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So there, if you want to, I'm gonna also put it in the chat in a few minutes as well. If you want, or your organization wants to do their own launch event, or they want to have an idea of doing a launch event in a particular area, register with us. We can communicate with you to either, and if you just gotta explicitly say you want to collaborate or you want to be doing something your own, explicitly mention to us, where we're gonna take you to a series of trainings to really feel comfortable talking about the ERA to people in your life, in your community, and then also partner you up with people within the organization. As I mentioned before, we work with various different organization groups that are very regional all across New York State that you can collate and partner with to have an event sometime either on March 21st, the week before March 21st, or the week after March 21st, to really show that we are a grassroots coalition, people power, active mobilizing campaign. So again, repeating that again, if you are interested in being either hosting one or just being a part of one, let us know, send me an email. We're gonna start in the next week or so, sending out a mobilize for people to sign up for an event near their region, or if you want to start one, you'll also be part of that mobilize link so that people can sign up for your area to, again, find actionable ways in which you can really help the campaign, where we're also going to train and teach you to sort of talk and be accumulated with everything that's going on. And then again, making sure you have making sure you have the assets that are needed to help with the campaign process.
Something that I am seeing coming up a couple of times in the chat is there's definitely some opposition. It sounds like linked up with the anti-vaxxers, and obviously there's some opposition with parental rights. But the other thing that a couple of folks have mentioned is really about folks who are deliberately not voting due to really what's happening on the international scale. And I think one of the most important things to think about here, and I was just on a panel at Hofstra talking to students about this, and what I've been reminding folks when talking with them about this or about even going to the polls is that yes, it's important to vote for candidates. It's critical to vote for your local candidates, but it's also really important to obviously vote for presidential candidates. But it's important to remind people that more than voting for candidates, when they show up to the polling booth this November, they're going to be voting for an issue that is, could critically affect almost all New Yorkers in one way or another. So I've been pushing people to really think about the fact that this year they're going to be voting on an issue that's really important. And so if they're not jazzed to vote for one candidate over another, then get to the polls to vote for the ERA.
And to really uplift that part as well, Erica, I'll even ask you guys, do you ever feel when you watch the news, do you feel dread about this year's election? Like, I'm Jen, like, you don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to, I could just tell sometimes because, everyone feels that way. Voter apathy is a real thing. But, the beautiful part of this campaign is that it is not by politicians. It's not by it's formally based off a policy base. It is by people, and people like you and I that got together, said something needs to be done and something has to be done in our hands. And that, and whoever you want to vote for or whoever you're going to vote for, it's really understanding that we still have a choice in the matter to protect our own rights and freedoms, because as I say multiple times again, people come and go, but policies are forever.
100%. Yeah. There are a couple of questions. A couple of questions about potential activities for the ERA. The first is asking if there are going to be walks for the ERA. And then the second is asking if there is an idea about kind of like targeted op-eds, letters to the editor, and what would the timing like that look like?
Well, I will say it like this. If people want to do ERA walks, I'll be happy to join them and I'll happy to help. But I would really, again, we want everyone to have their own autonomy and ownership of the ideas that they have. And we're also happy to help connect you with people who want to do the similar ideas as well. Because we really want to show that this is run not just by a oligarchy or conglomerate, it's run by everyone here. And we want to make sure, and our job really is to just best accommodate all the ideas that's being given to us and how we sort of formulate that and formulate it. Same way when it comes to young people, right? We have this really wonderful partnership with this group called the Young Feminist Party that are student-led, college-led, and they're doing their own thing. And we're not trying to step in their way. We just want to make sure that to help them to make sure that they grow within the 273 college universities across New York State to make sure that there's student power with that grain, with that ground and that startup work. And if you also know any college students yourself that want to be a part of this, send them my way. We want to make sure to meet people where they are and help accommodate that. And I believe the last question was, Erica, would you mind repeating it again? Just to make sure I got it right, in regards to op-eds?
Timing, what does the timing look like on op-eds or letters to the editor?
Yeah, no, and again, this goes back to when we get our comms. Our comms are coming in Friday. I've been listing everything that's been asked by comms people, and I'm getting them to work as soon as 12 a.m. HEPS, March 1st. So you guys will be getting a lot of those toolkits soon enough in regards to things that you can do in all your own individual rights or within group rights.
Thanks, Nia. Got a bunch of really great ideas in the chat. I just want to let you all know that I've noted everything that you've mentioned. I've got buttons, I've got bumper stickers, I've got an idea for AAUW branches, a Facebook photo frame. So we're collaborating all this, and we'll make sure that that it gets put to good use. Let's see, I have one last question here that's a little bit nitty gritty. And it's the question is, will legal scrutiny criteria be addressed within this amendment?
Can you sort of clarify that one a little bit?
I don't know that I'm not the one who could
Yeah, no,
provide
I mean, like,
clarification. So if the person who asked the question is still on, would you mind unmuting yourself and clarifying? Looks like Quincy. I don't know if we still have Quincy with us. No? Okay.
I'm gonna assume, and I'm sorry, Quincy, I'm gonna assume legal scrutiny, you mean like, will there be any legal ramifications for discrimination within when the bill gets passed? Like, for example, let's say if there's workplace discrimination within let's say there's workplace discrimination in the workplace for elderly, would that like really get penalized? The TDRL answer to that is sort of a yes. It will be, that's where it's just to add existing protections that's already been in the statutory, but also complemented within a more constitutional frame. So whatever legally is here in New York already, it's just going to be added explicitly within the Constitution. So that can also. Oh, I think someone put in the chat for a definition.
Judy, do you want to, Judy, you can hop in and unmute yourself if you want to.
Sure, I'm gonna leave my camera off because I'm sitting in gloom. Basically, I think what they may be asking is there are two kinds, when you sue for being discriminated against for age or gender or whatever, the courts apply one of two tests for your suit. One is strict scrutiny, and the other I think is called standard scrutiny. Standard scrutiny is, so show me everything that you can that proves that your employer or whoever is discriminating against you. And you need to prove intent as well as anything else to win. Whereas when there's strict scrutiny, you don't have, intent is less important, outcome and results are enough. So the race and religion right now get strict scrutiny. Sex and age do not, I believe. It kind of varies by jurisdiction. New York City, they may get strict scrutiny. New York State, I don't think they do. So if you say, hey, look at my employer, all the women get paid 1/3 as much as the men do. Under strict scrutiny, that would look like there might be discrimination. But under standard scrutiny, it's, yeah, well, maybe the women just leave to have kids after a few years. Does that answer it? So my understanding is, I would hope that putting this into the Constitution requires strict scrutiny for every single one of these categories.
Okay, no, that's helpful. And that's something I will definitely get back with my legal team on this, because again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm also going to be under that. But I don't want to give misinformation of something that I don't particularly know. So I will get back on that question.
Absolutely. But I mean, that is something that if you're going to sue, matters.
Of course. No, definitely.
It looks like we are right at time. Is there any last minute lingering questions before we all hop off this evening? Guess I should wrap up by saying if you do have any lingering questions, please make sure to reach out to Nia, or you can reach out to myself if you are interested in talking about collaborating and with the league and getting events together. Thank you so much to AAUW. Thank you so much to Nia, and thank you all so much for joining us here this evening. And let's get to the ballot and vote in November. Thanks all.
Thank you both
Thank you
for
so
presenting. Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Nia. It was great. Thank you
It
so much.
was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks all.